are live on Blog Talk Radio for FalconZone. I'm your host, Jeremy the Impact York, and joining me today after a long absence, but a great absence because he was doing some really awesome things, is the Coach, Haywood Hill. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing great, Jeremy. How about yourself?
I'm doing spectacular. The weather's finally broken on us here, and we can actually predict what it's going to do. But tons we're going to get to. Reggie, unfortunately, had something that kind of come up last minute. Nothing, no kind of health-related thing or nothing like that. He had something come up and won't be able to join us. But we do know his take on a few things. So we'll get to those later on. But, we were talking a little bit earlier today, Coach. There is a lot of things going on. For it to just be OTA time, the NFL is really booming.
They are. They've been very, very busy since the draft. As we've spoken on previous shows, now the NFL is a full-time business all season long, whether the games are being played or not.
Absolutely, and we do want to just quash this rumor out of the gate. As far as we know, we have not heard from Ray Lewis since he left ESPN. But as much as Impact Media would love him to join our broadcast staff, we currently have not hired Ray Lewis. I know a lot of people ask me that. I don't know if they ask you that, Coach.
I can't say I've gotten that question as of yet.
Well, you might be getting it, for the people who aren't listening right now. So if you do, let them know. As far as we know, we haven't hired him, but, hey, that could change.
That's media for you. Things change constantly.
Exactly. We did not start that rumor. I promise you. I would have started a bigger one than that. But, let's get right into it. There's tons of stuff we're going to get into. We're going to talk about the Ravens penalty. We're going to talk about Jimbo Fisher in the NFL. We're going to talk about the kicker battle for the Falcons, the Big Four. We got some big stuff going on, including should athletes respond to people on social media, at least hecklers. But let's start with the big elephant in the room, and it's been an elephant in the room for, a year and a half longer than it should have, and that's Brady is going to file an appeal about his suspension as far as the Deflategate things. What are you hearing as far as this stuff?
Well, as you know, it's been an ongoing situation with the New England Patriots and that organization with Tom Brady and everything that took place with the Deflategate. My take on this, as I'm looking at the situation unfold, I think it's a situation not a matter of if but when. I think the suspension will hold up, although he's putting in the appeal. And the reason why I say this is because when you look at the distribution of punishment and/or sanctions and/or suspensions, you can pick whatever adjective you like to fill in the blank. You'll find that one of the concerns, and it will be coming probably from the Players Association, i.e. the players themselves, is that they're looking at how the punishments are being distributed. Are they being distributed evenly and equally? Does the crime fit the punishment? So I think it was one of those things where last year the athletic process for Mr. Brady was put on hold, or it was put in a position where he could finish the season last year without interruption. But I think it's one of those things that cannot be avoided this year. And I think now it's just a matter of New England accepting that suspension will come, but trying to position themselves to see where it can best fall in their advantage during the season.
Yeah, I think we definitely will see the hammer will come down one way or the other, whether it's on Brady's side, whether it's not. And I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later because I think all involved parties are just tired of dealing with this. And as we were talking earlier, I said a couple weeks ago I threw out my conspiracy theory about maybe an arrangement being made between the NFL and Robert Kraft about Brady serving the suspension this year as opposed to last year. And that is actually something I have been asked quite a bit about as well. That theory was off the top of my head based off information I know. I did not hear that from the NFL nor anybody related to the Patriots, but you actually said you could see that happening as well.
Yeah, again, like I said, it's one of those things where I think the biggest question mark now is not how the punishment is going to be, handled because it's already been given a 4-game suspension, but now the credibility of the commissioner and how the compliance piece of the NFL now works. And so that's one of the things that the players are going to be watching. I mean, I think at that point, players who have already been suspended and who are faced with Mr. Brady is about to face can now, I guess, for the lack of better terms, feel a sense of relief that whatever the punishment that is being passed down according to the commissioner and the bylaws of the National Football League is being done fairly. And I think that's one of the greatest concerns probably most of the players have right now.
Yeah, absolutely, because this is a lot bigger than just suspending one of the top players. This is going to set the precedent for going forward as far as the relationship between the Player Association and the league by far. And we're going to move on to the next thing, even though it's kind of related to it. Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, has come out to say that he endorses the Raiders' move to Las Vegas. That's a complete 180 from where he was as much as 30 days ago, for the most part. And in response to all that, Hall of Fame player Ronnie Lott says he would like to see the city of Oakland build the Raiders a stadium out there.
Well, one of the things, it would be great if you could put a team in Vegas, but there, are some things that go along with that, and it has to be a tremendous effort in getting the city to support it. As we very well know, Las Vegas is an entertainment city. It's an entertainment town, and tourism is a huge market and a lifeline to the city itself. However, if you take into consideration football is there now currently, and all you have to do is look at what I call the microcosms. One of those things is to look at UNLV, look at their attendance. I mean, there you have a college that's there, and are they getting full capacity at the stadium for that particular venue? The other thing you want to look at is that they've had some smaller professional venues there with arena football, which doesn't take near as much room and or space. It's not a question about a facility because they have the T-Mobile Arena out there, which can facilitate football as the Georgia Dome does here in Atlanta. But the thing is, can you get the participation, and realistically, will people go to Vegas to watch football versus the traditional things that tourists do when they go to Vegas, which is to catch shows and to be a part of the gaming there? So that's going to be a big part of it they have to look at, and how do you keep an attraction and not have to split so much of that revenue up with all of the things that are there to entertain you in Las Vegas now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And as I've said before, actually, as of Tuesday, I've interviewed two former Las Vegas Outlaws, which is the arena team out that way. They played there last year. And, they talked about some of these things. When you play in Las Vegas, there are a lot of distractions. It's not the gambling aspect so much, but there are parties and good situations and bad situations out there that sometimes are just unavoidable. You just have to know how to just sometimes duck your head and leave the room before, the proverbial crap hits the fan.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. That might come at the cost of a lot of people, and a lot of situations that, might very well damage the reputation of the players and organizations alike.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously we'll hit more on the Raiders moving to Las Vegas. I've been behind the move, honestly. I think it would be something cool, but, as you said earlier, I absolutely agree. There are a lot of extra hills they got to climb, and there are a lot of hoops they got to get through to get to that point. They're still a long way.
Yeah, trust me, that won't be an easy task for the NFL and that committee that looks at potential cities, whether they're moving a team and or looking to accept new bids for franchises.
Yep, absolutely. Next on the docket, because we're going to try to fly through a lot of these, because I think our big four are going to be our bigger topics of the day. Ex-Oregon quarterback Vernon Adams has decided to play in the Canadian Football League. Now, not that I'm a big Vernon Adams fan. The kid can play pretty good. He's got a good set of skills. But the main reason I wanted to mention this is finally we get a talented player. He didn't get drafted. I think he got a couple camp invites here and there, but he got the solid offer to play in Canada to hone his skills. This is one of the first guys that we're really hearing about. There's been some before him, but this is the first guy with NFL potential who is going to Canada to fix the niches in his game and to try to build his brand a lot better so that he can come back. Kind of a Warren Moon type thing.
Well, it sounds like he has the right agent around him. His team is smart. They've looked at the situation, and they most definitely realize that if you're not in football, it's harder to get a job in football when you're not playing football. So I think it's a great move for him to go there, hone his skills, get professional attached to his name as he shedded his collegiate years, and go and play with some coaches who have coached in the NFL and against competition that has been in the NFL, are probably some of those same athletes that are in the position that he's in now. He won't find any less talent in the CFL, I can assure you of that.
Absolutely. I spend a lot of time watching those Canadian games. I actually make sure to record a good handful of them because, we end up knowing a lot of the players, whether they came from colleges around here or people we haven't heard from in a while. And then sometimes there are guys that didn't even, they are from other countries, especially Canada, that we haven't heard of. And those guys can still play up there. But I do warn people, if you like the traditional run the football and big defense, that's not really what the Canadian Football League is about. They are a very pass-friendly league, which technically the NFL is pretty much a pass-happy league anyway. But it's a little different. The rules are slightly different, but overall the play up there is still on a pro level.
Yeah, and what people fail to realize, the field is a lot larger. So now the throws that he has to make toward the sidelines are throws that he really has to step into now and get the ball delivered further out. So it'll be very interesting to see how that's going to pan for him, and hopefully he gets his opportunity there, is able to make an impression and come back, within the following year or two back to the NFL where he wants to be.
Yep, absolutely. But finally we get to hear, a lot of people said Tim Tebow should have went there, up to Canada and honed his skills. They say various things back and forth. So the fact that, finally Vernon Adams Jr. was the first one to really publicly say it, I wanted to let that out there because, kudos to him for realizing here's a chance to get to play, to get a lot of snaps, a lot of reps, and here's a great chance for me to fix a few things in my game that I need to, learn a different style, learn some different things, so that when I do get that next shot at the NFL, I'm ready.
Well, it just shows that he will have a background in what we call adaptability. And that is something that is going to be great for him. Again, there are a lot more opportunities for a football player to become a professional. You have Arena, you have the CFL, you have other leagues that are over in the European leagues where you can play American-style football. So to not be playing is where you damage yourself, and that's where your stock will really fall off versus playing no matter where you can play. And keeping, relevant film and showing that you're in shape. Those are the things that are very important. If you look at the draft, Minnesota took a receiver from Europe.
Yep.
And if I'm specifically from Germany, and that's the first time it had ever been done in the history of the draft. But it goes to show you that they have eyes all over the world watching our particular style of play, which is called American football, around the world. So the exposure is there. And all you have to do is be willing to humble yourself and go play in some of those leagues. If you don't make it to the NFL, even if you do, it doesn't guarantee you that you're going to stay past, a life expectancy of 3.3 years. So you most definitely want to go out and put, and make some relationships with other leagues to extend your longevity and or to, like you said earlier, when you commented on making sure that you have the ability to go out and fix certain deficiencies in your game.
Absolutely, and the fun fact on the German wide receiver you're talking about is I believe he's only been playing football for just 2 to 3 years. He actually learned, I can't remember if it was the video game or he learned from like some old tapes of like a Super Bowl or something like that and started playing, has a lot of natural athletic ability. So, hey, I kind of got an eye on this guy. I want to see exactly what he can do.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he turns out in camp.
Absolutely. And speaking of how things turn out in camp, this is a great segue into the Ryan Fitzpatrick saga. Because it almost has turned into a soap opera at this point. But then again, the New York Jets, they're pretty much a soap opera on their own anyway. Ryan Fitzpatrick says that he plans to play in the league this year. And the follow-up on that is his two top targets last year, Brandon Marshall and I just forgot the other name, Eric Decker, are currently sitting out voluntary OTA minicamps in protest for the Jets not signing Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Well, one thing I'll say to that is that they have them an insurance policy called voluntary OTAs. I'm not saying that they're not standing behind their quarterback. I'm sure that they are. But it's from a safe place right now, and we will know how serious they feel about this when they move into the mandatory OTAs and training camp, where money is then can be confiscated, for the lack of better terms, for non-participation. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with it, and what the Jets do with Fitzpatrick in the process.
Right, and so that a lot of people can relate to this, and I like that they're standing behind the guy that they feel is the best quarterback option for them, and also they become probably friends and everything. This is the equivalent to your boss at work offering overtime to anybody that wants it. You don't have to be there, so you can say that you're protesting or standing for one thing by not getting the overtime hours, but at the same time they're voluntary overtime.
I concur.
Which leads us to, I think Ryan Fitzpatrick will play this season. It should be for the Jets. If it's not, that's a crying shame. But there's still, I would say, a solid 5 to 6 teams, if not more, that are in dire need of a starting quarterback. And I would say there's another 5 or 6 more past that he's probably better than the guy they have.
Well, he does have a resume, and I'm sure he will play. It's just a matter of finding the team that will require his services at the time.
Exactly. I agree. Now, the next thing is pretty controversial, really, and that's that the NFL reportedly, and it has been confirmed through sources, the NFL reportedly influenced the concussion study from a few years ago. Apparently, I think it has to do with the actual study that they put money behind as far as researching. They were hoping that backing that one over a couple other ones was going to get the result they wanted so that they could use that information. And I believe they backed out of it when it was not looking like it was going to kind of come out in their favor.
Well, there's an old saying that where there's smoke, there's fire. Mm-hmm. One of the things that's interesting about that is that they were, 1A, willing to back the study, and 2, I guess the interesting question would be, why did they pull out of it or stop funding that research? I mean, I guess the world would never know, but I think at the end of the day, as my grandmother would always say, what doesn't come out in the wash comes out in the rinse. And so now the rinse part of this has been a lot of the CTE independent studies in conjunction with the NFL studies as well, and you're starting to find out there's a lot of players that are suffering from this now, and it's starting to spill over into other sports, contact sports as well. So I think now it's a matter of damage control. With the I think the NFL is moving in the right direction. Most definitely, they're moving and trying to protect the players more. But I think also you have a lot of players. I don't think that there's a way that you're going to be able to stop the bleeding on this for a little while until you can get pretty much all of the players who've ever played in the NFL tested, and to try to come up with something that maybe can help with reversing and or retarding the process of this dreadful impact on their lives with CTE.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, we don't know all the facts yet, but, I do agree where there's smoke, there's fire. And for all the younger people, our younger listeners who may not know what it all comes out in the wash or the rinse saying actually means, I encourage you to start doing your own laundry. You're definitely old. If you're old enough to listen to this show, you're old enough to do your own laundry. So, help your parents out, help your grandparents out, do some laundry, and you'll understand that reference. Everything does come out at the end of the wash. I'm going to get a lot of hate mail from a lot of our younger viewers now. But that's okay. We encourage anybody to get in touch with us and tell us what they like, what they don't like, things they want us to do. You know, we're setting up some fun guests coming up in the future. I don't want to quite announce everything yet because we're finalizing them, but just trust us. We listen to you guys, and we're trying to get on some real fun people. Speaking of fun people, at least his name sounds fun, we're going to talk about the fact that Jimbo Fisher of the Florida State Seminoles, that seem to pump out 4 or 5 first-round draft picks a year, he has said that in the last couple seasons he's gotten many NFL offers, and he has turned them down because he enjoys what he does at Florida State. And, you know, never say never, but for right now, none of those offers are good enough for him to leave his very, very awesome cushy job. I threw in the word cushy, but his very good job down in Tallahassee.
Well, I'm sure he's elated that he's gotten some NFL offers. I'm not surprised with the way the program has progressed under him over the last couple of years and the players that he's had go to the NFL. I guess the question that basically remains to be unanswered is, are they head coaching jobs?
No,
I think, you know,
for the most part, they were coordinator was, I think, the best. I think offensive coordinator or something was the best he offered. Because somebody did follow up and ask if it was head coaching jobs or stuff like that, and he said he didn't say no, but he said for the most part it was coordinators and position coaches and, you know, those sorts of things. And for right now, he enjoyed being in charge.
Yeah, and that's always tough. You know, once you become a head coach, it's very difficult for you. And that's not an ego thing. It's just one of those things where you're going to the NFL, and as we know, football is a performance-based business, and that's how coaches succeed and players succeed and programs succeed, and NFL players get big contracts, all based around performance. However, there's a little less room for tolerance as you move into the NFL because it's based strictly off winning and losing, and it does as well in college. But you have a little more leverage because you have those players, and you can literally build a team for a longer period of time. Unlike the NFL, where you're constantly trying to figure out how you're going to either keep players or players that are going to go test the free agent market, and if you're going to be able to retain those players thereafter, or what you have on your roster. So your roster is constantly changing from year to year. I think that's the biggest stressor that you find in the NFL. Unlike college football, a lot of kids are playing for fun and scholarship and opportunity for the NFL. Once you get to the NFL, it's a business. So there's a different element to take into consideration then.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And, a lot of people have said, if he was given the opportunity to coach Jameis Winston again or something like that, that would be why he would leave. And I was like, I wouldn't jump to that big conclusion. For one, that job's not available, and I think it'll be a handful of years before it is. And two, he really does have one of the better gigs in sports. You can talk about a lot of different things here and there. The NFL, unless your name is Belichick or you coach the Giants or the Steelers, there's a good chance that your job could be anywhere between 2 to 4 years before they replace you. I get, Green Bay the same way. Those are jobs usually there for 15, 20 years, given the results. But when you talk about college football, I mean, USC, you talk about Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, you talk about Georgia, Alabama, those kind of jobs, those are some of the bigger jobs in college. And you got to throw, now Miami, and you got to throw Florida State right back in that mix as well. That's one of the better jobs in sports right now. So I don't think he would leave that unless it's just an unbelievable offer.
Yeah, he would have to have at least a 5-year deal guaranteeing, 3 of those 5 with the buyout option on the last 2. It has to be so many insurance policies to it. I think the same thing you find with Coach Saban over in Alabama. It's very difficult to move out of those situations when you have the resources that you need, but more importantly, you can continue to build a program, and that's something that you don't get a chance to do in the NFL. You don't get the luxury of keeping all of your players all of the time. Exactly.
And got a couple more things to finish up on our NFL roundup here. We'll get into some Falcon stuff and then the Big Four after that. But the last few things we want to get to, the Ravens have officially gotten penalized for the rookie practice violation. Basically, what they did, I believe, if I read it right, is they had some of the rookies, or most or all of the rookies, in helmets and pads, full pads, during the rookie week of practices, and that is an NFL violation. It's not a new rule, so the Ravens, because they're a very reputable and one of the better ran franchises, simply just pretty much took their punishment on the chin and moved on about it. Let's see if I can find there. Here it is. The NFL fined the Ravens organization $343,057, and head coach John Harbaugh was fined $137,223 because of this, and they're going to lose a week of OTA practices because of that in June.
Well, they have compliance officers, and they go around, and their job is to make sure that the rules are followed. So, again, any team could have been caught in that particular position. Unfortunately, it was the Ravens. One thing they did do, they held themselves accountable. They took their fines, and they're quickly moving forward with preparing their organization and their players for the season.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They're all the franchises are good franchises in different ways, but the Ravens have always been very reputable. They're very upfront about things like this. I think when news broke of it, they said yes, we did that. They tried to play the card, that they didn't quite know what the rule meant, but John Harbaugh's been there for like 6 or 7 years, and this rule is slightly older than that, I believe. So at the end of the day, they said, okay, we did it. Just like the Falcons owned up to the noise gate stuff, and a lot of teams own up to this stuff. So they know they did wrong. When you get caught with your hand in the cookie jar, you might as well enjoy the cookie and just take the punishment on the chin.
And that's what they did.
Yep, absolutely. Because you can't take back in the NFL, when you break a rule or anytime you break a rule, you can't take it back. You can't say, okay, we'll go back in time, we'll take the pads and the helmets off these kids and then practice again. So you just let it go, you take the punishment, and you move on. Last few things, I didn't have these listed actually on the main sheet, but they're real quick. Richard Sherman has come out and said he doesn't think beast mode is necessarily retired. And he didn't say that he's talked to him or anything like that, but he said, given Marshawn Lynch's history, he is about as predictable, quote, as a pair of dice, unquote. And that's definitely a Richard Sherman quote if there ever was one. The thing I hear, though, is that if beast mode did try to come back and play, he wants to play for the Raiders. Unfortunately, he's still under contract with the Seahawks, so he would have to work out getting cut or work out some sort of thing there because they have his rights.
Well, Reggie McKenzie, who's the general manager in Oakland and a person that I know well, if there's any wiggle room with something that is compromisable for the Raiders, I'm sure they'd be willing to entertain that. It'll be interesting to see what they do with that particular situation, especially if he wants to come home to Oakland. So it'll be interesting to see, and it'll be a great piece of the puzzle to be solved for the Oakland Raiders if they can get it.
Yeah, that would be – I know they're working on their run game, which is one of their Achilles heels right now. But, Oakland and Jacksonville, we've talked about this before, and like you said, you called this a couple years ago. Those two teams are going to be the ones to look out for this year. But
I'm sorry, Jeremy. Yeah, the thing with Oakland and the thing with Mr. McKenzie, he's very good. He's very good in Green Bay with player personnel. He's been excellent as a general manager there in Oakland. And again, I kind of predict my teams, 2 years out. And Oakland was one of those teams that I said, just give him a minute. He'll get it worked out. and they will be in contention. So look for Oakland to be a very strong team competing this year in their division as well as the conference.
Now, of course, that will bring up, do you have the teams that you're saying in 2 years from now will be the ones to watch?
I won't be able to do that for those teams until this season because I need to see where they are after this draft. This was a tremendous draft that we had, this particular draft. There were, what people don't know, that there were 27 selections in round 2 that were selected as round 1 first-round picks. So the 27 picks out of the next 32 picks that came after the first round, 27 of those guys had an opportunity. I mean, it was just one and or two things that separated them from that pick. And so that goes to show you that this draft produced a lot of great talent. Everybody, this year is going to be some of the most exciting football you've seen in a very long time in the NFL. Now, don't get me wrong, the last couple of years we've had some exciting games, but I think this is going to be, for the first time, you're going to have an exciting year where all the games will be very close. Don't blink your eye or run to the bathroom too fast before commercial break, or you might miss something.
Yeah, even though I've already caught some flack off of our Jaguar followers and my many friends out in the Jacksonville area, I'm actually going to throw this out here right now. I hope it kind of materializes, but a team to watch in the next 2 to 3 years, it may take them an extra year to get it going, but watch out for the Tennessee Titans because they needed a lot of help in this draft, and they got a lot of help in this draft. They already have their quarterback. They have 2 guys that are capable of protecting his blind side. They added some runners to help him out to balance out Mariota's stuff, and actually their defense is come along as well. So the Titans could be one of those teams in a couple of years.
Well, I most definitely will be able to look at them this year and assess them at that time. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with them this year if they can stay healthy.
Yeah, I'm not going to put my stamp of approval yet on them because I agree with you. I at least want to see some of the preseason before I say something, that I say put that in writing. But the Titans, I think, are that next team up.
They very well could be.
And let's see. Oh, last thing, the NFL owners had a meeting the other day, and they discussed a lot of different things. The 2 main things that everybody wanted to hear about, from us at least, was they voted on having the video replays instead of having just the still frame photos on those tablets on the sideline, that you can actually get video replays on those. I think that is going to happen within the next couple years. And I forgot who proposed it. It might have been the Ravens or somebody. They proposed that instead of having 2 different roster cuts from 90 to like 75 and 75 to 53, that you just do 1 cut from 90 to 53 and make it less complicated that way. And I don't think that's a bad idea because that way you don't string people along for a little bit, but at the same time, that's an extra couple weeks that some of these guys may not get another paycheck from the NFL.
Well, I can tell you one of the things that I like the way the system is set up now because what it does, it gives you an opportunity to continue to play and build film. Mm-hmm. 2, if someone gets hurt, if you cut before then, it's very difficult to go back and try to rally those players that were in camp with you because they've already signed with other teams. So kind of progressing them along gives you an opportunity to continue to see how well they're learning the system, get film, and hopefully bring some of those guys back upon injury. So you most definitely, the way that they're doing the cuts now, it kind of gives you an idea of where players were and what the NFL thought of them at that moment to give them opportunity to extend some time. So the double cut, I'm not against, and that's for that very reason. It allows that opportunity for you to play a little bit longer and for people to see what you have, so that it helps. Exactly.
But that's going to do it for all the NFL stuff we got. We're going to jump right into the Falcon stuff because I really want to get to the Big Four. Like I said, I think those are going to be real fun. But first thing I wanted to hit Falcons-wise is DQ, not Dairy Queen. Of course, that is Dan Quinn, the big coach on campus. he was on ESPN. He's kind of made his media circuit tour, and he's a phenomenal speaker. If this whole coaching thing doesn't work out, maybe he should try politics. He's a great. He can really get your attention. He can really say things the right way. It just like I brought up to you earlier. I feel like him and Gus Bradley from Jacksonville have a lot in common. They're really good speakers that can really rally the troops, but I want to see the results on the field, or potentially look at moving on.
Well, the litmus test will be in this season that he has now. I mean, being that they have the toughest, if not the second toughest, schedule this year, it's going to say a lot of what the team is made of and how well the coaches have allowed their philosophy to kick in over the last year. Because now, you have to look at realistically injuries and things of that nature. And that goes back to what I'm saying about preseason and why you don't want to just quickly cut down to 53. Just because of the fact that you have some things out there and some situations out there that will be unbeknownst to you, whether it's through the OTAs and losing players and veterans there, or even in preseason. So it'll be real interesting to see, what Atlanta does, and more importantly, what Coach Quinn does with this schedule that he's facing this year.
And also something we talked about before we came on air today. Do you want to get into your hot take about that particular Falcons player, or do you want to save that for when we have Reggie on?
I would say save it when we have Reggie on. He'll be elated.
I was going to agree on that one for sure. Trust me, guys. I want Reggie's initial reaction. It's a conversation the three of us have always had for a long time, but I think there's a lot more validity to the side that Coach is on this one. Just trust me, it's going to be worth hearing, hopefully, in the next couple of weeks or something like that. Just know that hot take's coming. I may even come up with a new theme song or something for it.
Okay.
Now, of course, like I said, I just want to save it because I think Reggie's reaction is going to be great, and his rebuttal on it, because I really feel like he's going to be on the other side of it. But right now, of course, the Falcons are in OTAs, and basically what OTA means is voluntary camp, workout, mini camps, that kind of stuff. What exactly goes on at these OTAs, Coach?
Well, a lot of things go on at the OTAs. It gives players an opportunity to get into their playbook a little bit more, so you want to sharpen them from the cerebral side of plays. It also gives the coaches the opportunity to kind of start building a bond and relationships with their particular units, whether you're a linebackers coach, special teams coordinator. You get a chance to start seeing what you have and what players you have, and more importantly, it gives an opportunity for the players to get themselves in shape. Now, you're not supposed to have contact during this time, but it gives you an opportunity to get them out, run them around a little bit. Let's see who's learning what. Let's get our rookies involved. Let's kind of start building our unit, if you will, and start building our team. So, there are some things that go up. There are some things that go down, because sometimes in some of the freakiest accidents, you lose a veteran player even for the season. With unforeseen accidents that take place, sometimes knees bumping together, falling awkwardly, although you're standing up most of the time. Just some of those things happen. But again, the OTAs give you an opportunity to kind of just put it together, and it's like buying furniture, if you will. You got the furniture sitting outside the room, and now you're ready to put it in the room, and you kind of get a chance to move things around to see how it looks. So it gives you an opportunity to start having those conversations early, plus seeing those players and getting them in shape for those who might not be in shape, although they should be. It's kind of a prerequisite to getting prepared for training camp. So it's a great opportunity to get them together and gives the players something to do instead of just showing up at training camp, and then you got to kind of sift through all of that. This is kind of a way of cleaning a lot of those things up early prior to training camp.
Absolutely, and there has been a couple big injuries. Seems like Jacksonville just can't get out of the way of the injury bug when it comes through, but we'll get to that in a minute. I want to talk a little more Falcons. Now, there's a report that Brooks Reed, who had a pretty good first season with the squad last year, not really a breakout, we all knew he was pretty good, but he has showed up to camp slimmer and faster. Now, I'm not that impressed by this because Paul Warlow did the same thing last year at camp. He showed up a little slimmer. He was a little leaner, little more muscular, and he was a lot faster. And if anything, he had a less stellar season than he did the previous year before that. So, just because you show up in better shape doesn't necessarily mean anything, at least to me.
Well, it's a 50-50. One thing is that if and again, this is where the OTAs play a huge role. Gives you an opportunity to assess a player at that point and to see where they are. You know what the expectations are, but now are they living up to those expectations? And sometimes, as coaches, we can find ourselves falling in love with the idea of. So what this will give an opportunity to see how he's moving around. Maybe that was something that they talked to him about in the off season. About him slimming down, about his speed. Maybe they showed him that in film where there were opportunities to make plays sooner or plays that might have been even missed as a result of that. So there's a reason, always there's method behind the madness, for the lack of better terms. But now running him around and seeing him in those schemes and moving around to see if some of those, if that has played a role, it's something that they'll keep in-house, and then that'll be something they will evaluate over the course of training camp and preseason. So it does have its ups and its downs, and in the case of Mr. Warlow, it didn't matter because there were some things that just didn't happen, in some situations for him as a result thereof. And now there's a room for him to adjust to some things. So it always plays a big role. It's just something that you want to make sure that you stay on top of as a coach as to why we love the OTAs and why they're there and the purpose of having them.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like the back in high school they would have the spring practices, and that's basically what these are. It's just to invite everybody out that's currently eligible or thinking about coming out and just seeing, just seeing what you have and of the returning guys, like you said, you see what kind of shape they're in to let somebody know. It's like, hey, be careful on that knee. I understand it's a little sore. Or they look and go, man, you really got to get in better shape. Or you can really kind of tackle things early before it becomes a full-blown issue in June and July.
Right, because what happens at that point is now you're looking at situations where you have players that are now in camp, and you're losing some of them players, and bodies are dropping like flies as a result of the lack of that preparation. So this allows, and it's an incentive-based type of program, so it does allow the players to keep themselves in shape, and and for those who don't have the larger contracts, to earn a few extra dollars along the way that can sustain them until they make the team and start getting their regular paychecks dispersed to them again. So I don't think any of them are hurting from that standpoint. But again, we don't know one's finances. So again, it just gives them an opportunity to continue to encourage to be ready and prepared when camp comes around.
Absolutely. And then as we move on to the next thing, the Falcons have done a lot of community events this preseason. Before the season starts here, and a lot more than they normally would. They were at Top Golf the other day promoting some stuff. I believe some of the cheerleaders have been out places. Some of the players have been out doing some other stuff. It really seems to me like, and it could be just they're trying to drum up some business for that new stadium coming up, make sure that the fans are still on board. But also, them actually reaching out like this, it's like they're telling the fans, we understand we haven't been good, but you should still come see us because we're going to be better.
Well, it's a great PR tool for the team. I mean,
right.
They're about to move into a $1 billion facility next year. And so what better time than now to have the players out and have them accessible prior to moving into your new home. So I think it allows them to become more human, more connected. It also allows them to get to a fan base for various reasons that cannot afford maybe to go to a game. It makes it more personable, and it makes the players as well as the fans feel that you're not an untouchable and that we can relate.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's the same argument I bring up. The Hawks are a little better at doing this, but part of the Thrashers' problem is the players could walk around all over the city of Atlanta. They could have walked into, they could have stood behind us in the Starbucks line, and we wouldn't have known who half of them were, except for people like me that really knew the team, being a big fan. But part of the reason people didn't go to Thrasher games is they didn't know who any of these guys were. At least if you do a lot of these community outreach programs and go to schools and help build playgrounds and go to Top Golf and go to these types of events, people can see your face and go, oh, that's what Matt Ryan looks like. Oh, that's what Arthur Blank looks like. Okay, they were really cool guys.
Right. I think that was a big piece of it, which would have helped them, and also being that here in the South, hockey is not a game that's played even
Right.
at a high school level here. So I think it was more important for the Thrasher organizations, and then we had the Flames prior to that many years ago. I think that was the demise of both of those organizations. It's not that you don't have a base that you can build, because you have people from New York, you have people from Maine, you have people from around who traditionally have hockey as a big part of their areas that sometimes replaces football and or is just part of the whole gamut of things with them. But I think that was a big problem here, is that no one knew who they were, and because it wasn't a sport that was played anytime between elementary school and high school, and even in college here we don't have, I don't know of a hockey team that we have here even in college. So I think that was a big part of it, and the more they would have got out of the community, the more they could have educated people on the sport, I think it would have been a little while, but eventually, as Atlantans do, we would have bought into what the Threshers organization was trying to get done and support it, even if we didn't quite understand all of it.
Right, and I could probably do a year's worth of shows as to how bad the management was of that Thrasher team, which was the ultimate demise. But yeah, I absolutely agree, because there's not a lot of high schools around here that play that. Most everybody plays the major sports of baseball, basketball, football, those kinds of things. On a collegiate level, there's only a couple D1 programs in the state. Most of them are D2 or the club teams. So, I understand that thing. But getting back into the Falcons here, I actually looked up the kid's name because I was telling you about it earlier. There is actually a kicker battle, and I've heard a lot of media guys who have seen the team out here at some of the early practices. And Matt Bryant he's 40 years old. I'm not saying that he's done or anything like that, but he had a couple injuries last year. We had to bring in another guy. He did pretty well. But they brought in an undrafted free agent rookie out of Texas. His name is Nick Rose. He is 6'2", 203, 22 years old, so he spent all his time in college. But from what I'm hearing, not only is Nick Rose going kick for kick with Matt Bryant, but there's a lot of times that he's every kick he's making are going through the uprights. So, if they want to save some money, or if Nick puts on a good enough show, maybe he's more than just the backup call if something happened to Matt Bryant.
Well, I mean, that's what this competition is all about. It humbles you and it grows you. So there's no position safe. And as you get ready to move into training camp, that's why you have a 90-man roster. So, again, good luck to him. And competition now is coming to the kicker position.
Yep, and Dan Quinn is all about competition. So I look forward to that battle. As me and Reggie discussed a couple of weeks ago, maybe we can the three of us, get an Impact Media trip to some of the preseason practices, closer to the season start, and maybe go up there and do a show or something like that. But at least take a trip and get our eyes on some of these guys so that we know a little bit more.
Yeah, I would suggest that. That would be great.
And then, of course, the last thing we want to get into from the Falcons is the whole thing about Jacob Tamme being the most hated player in the NFL. Now, obviously, it's not true. He's one of the most liked guys, but somehow as a joke, somebody put him on one of these lists of most hated players in the league. And as a joke, people like Jay Adams, who was one of the main media guys for the Falcons, said, hey, just for kicks, let's try to get him voted in as number one so that, he'll actually, he'll win this list. And in the process, they got him to be voted the most hated. So people have sent out various tweets and messages. I said some of them to you earlier, Coach, like, man, I really hate Jacob Tamme. He doesn't return overdue library books, or he can't parallel park, or it's just, just kind of funny fodder. And he reads some of these, and he's laughed at a few of them, but it just goes to show you that a lot of people on the internet are just after clicks, and the people that made this list were just trying to do that. Jacob Tamme by far is probably one of the most liked people, and at least he played along with this one.
Well, yeah, he showed a great sense of humor, and you just have to be careful when dealing with social media. You know, that's the biggest piece of it. You have to be kind of careful when dealing with social media. So he is wise in the way that he approached it, and he handled it very well. So that was a good part of it.
Absolutely, and what a perfect segue as we now get into our Big Four, and I think we should start with that one. As far as should athletes respond to, they can respond to people in general. Just we'll call them hecklers for the most part, the people that nitpick these guys and just say the most ridiculous things. Should athletes respond to hecklers on Twitter or social media? This all stems from apparently at one point some guy, let's see, his name is Dick Klatt from Big Bend, Wisconsin, and he posted something on Aaron Rodgers' Twitter about how he should stop the hard counts. They're ruining the game. These hard counts where it'll be 3rd and 5 and Aaron Rodgers gets somebody to jump, gets the free 5 yards, or, picking up these easy things. Brady does it. Manning does it. Most of the good quarterbacks know how to do it. But he said Rodgers does it so much that he's ruining the game. Just go ahead and pick up the 5 yards. Well, Aaron Rodgers decided to respond. Not something he normally does. But his response, quote, I read some dumb things on here from time to time, but wow, Dick Klatt from Big Bend, Wisconsin, .. Hashtag no hard count 2016, unquote, and then he's got a little video clip from one of the Hangover movies where the guy is saying, you are literally too stupid to insult. So Aaron Rodgers, I guess, got a little bent out of shape about this one and decided to take to Twitter to respond. You think this is a good thing? Or you think maybe there was a little bit better way to deal with this?
By far, there was a better way to deal with it. You have to be aware of social media. Again, you have a lot of people that hide behind avatars, and they're giving their opinion. Now, again, that same gentleman that you spoke of has never been hit by an NFL defensive end. And so, therefore, it's easy to say when you're not staring a J.J. Watts, who's a sub 4.5 run at 280, 290, who lands on top of you. You have to try to do that all over again. So again, as a defensive coordinator, one of the things we tell players, and we constantly, and we actually even practice as a drill, and we'll create stadium music, we'll do all these distractions, that you're supposed to be watching the ball.
Right.
So if you're trying to get off on the cadence count, the way that you work that is because you're listening to cadence, and you listen to cadence, and is that you change up the count. It's no different than a pitcher throwing a different type of pitch. It's a part of the game. It's not going away anytime soon. And to say that Mr. Rodgers is ruining the game, then you have to say all of the greats who've ever used hard counts have ruined the game. So that was kind of an interesting analogy that he had, and more specifically where he placed it on just a quarterback versus the quarterback position and the years that great quarterbacks have used it.
Absolutely, because I doubt Mr. Klatt is listening to this show, but if he is, thanks for listening. You're probably not going to like what I'm going to say, but yeah, like you're saying, the thing that cannot happen before that ball, the reason you watch the ball, the play can't start until that ball is snapped. It doesn't matter how many things people say. Aaron Rodgers can tell you a story. The only thing he has to watch out for is that countdown clock, that when it gets to 0, he gets a penalty for not snapping the ball. But beyond that, until that ball moves from the center to the quarterback or to whoever is going to receive it to start the play, that play can't start.
Correct. And there again, you brought about some interesting points when you talked about the clock to keep the game moving so you can't eat up all of the time. Also, there is a false start that can be called on the center for enticement by squeezing or flexing the football or sliding the ball, if you will, to try to reposition it, which can also give you false starts or offside penalties. So trust me, the game is evolving, and with technology, you get a chance to see all these things. And they talk about all this in competition and rules committees. So, again, but I just don't think the hard count will never go anywhere. It is as relevant to football as it is the change-up pitch to baseball. So don't expect that to go anywhere.
Exactly, and not to call Aaron Rodgers out, but this is one time that he should have listened, or he should have followed something Brett Favre would have probably done. He would have probably just threw his hand up like, whatever, man, how about I keep being the quarterback and you keep being the fan that complains about it, or just shrug your shoulders, because this guy's comment about hard counts and you ruining the game, who cares? There are 9 billion other people who like you, Aaron Rodgers. Why are you worried about the one who doesn't like the way you play?
Thus pushing us back toward the OTAs and why we need them. Players can have a little extra time on their hand. And if you're in the film room working with new receivers, this is not something that you're concerned with. Not to say that Aaron was really, but the fact that he is a very interested individual. And when I say that with great respect. He's not one that's easily rattled by things such.
Right.
I'm a little taken back that he even responded to it at all versus having that conversation with, a taco and maybe a Coke.
Exactly. And who is that? Brett Hundley that they drafted to maybe take over the reins one day behind him. That's not exactly the best example to set for the young quarterback behind you, because he's going to look and go, I didn't think we were supposed to really get into that, but I mean, if Aaron Rodgers does it, or if Tom Brady does it, or if Carson Palmer does it, I mean, what's wrong with me doing it?
Well, it just shows you the power now of the next phase of media called social media.
Right.
And it goes to show you how powerful it is as a tool now. It's like fire. It depends on whose hands you're putting it in will determine, if it's destructive or constructive. So I think, again, that after he thought about it, I'm pretty sure that Mr. Rogers wish he could take it back, but he can't. So that would have lived in space, and you probably won't have anything else he'll comment on from this day forward.
Absolutely. And, so I guess to recap that entire Big Four right there, should athletes respond to hecklers or anybody in general on social media, I would say use discretion and keep it to a minimum. For the most part, it's not worth your time. We appreciate that you interact with us and with members of the media, other members of the media, and fans, but in these kind of cases, just let it go.
Well, I would quickly say that, I agree with you on interacting with the fans so that you're a human and not superhuman.
Right.
However, I would say if it's not positive, don't ever respond.
Exactly.
And in some cases, maybe not respond at all, because this is what you get. This is what you will get. This will be the backlash from it. I think Mr. Rogers sees that quickly now. You probably won't ever have him probably respond to any kind of tweet ever again as a result thereof. So, again, you have to beware of, what you put out there, because you can't retract it once it's out there. It's out there forever. So, again, I think that, and the NFL has a rule dealing with social media. They do have parameters around that. So, again, I think that he'll never do it again.
Exactly. And to get into our next Big Four topic, because I think it's going to be pretty short, we're going to pose the question, should there be contact at rookie camps and early spring practices? Now, I know you said there should be a little bit. I actually would say I think you should lay off and just mainly teach the playbook and maybe do some walkthroughs and maybe some non-contact drills because of all the big injuries that's happened here lately. But why do you think there should be a little bit of contact?
Because football is a contact sport. And what you have, you still get some of those same injuries in OTA when they're not in contact. So you must understand, when you're dealing with the mind of a player, players are warriors. And this is what they do. This is their job. And so I can honestly say, being in training camps, that their attention span is only going to be about an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and 30 at best. And if they're not running around feeling like they're football players at that moment, it doesn't work, because you're dealing with different type of players. All players learn differently. If they were all MTI grads and Harvard graduates, maybe you can do PowerPoint presentations for them, and they get it. But unfortunately, as a coach, you have to teach on all the levels that are there. I'll give you a prime example. I've had players that played at high institutions of learning, and again, this is no disrespect to any of the institutions, but they were highly cerebral players. So they got it through visual aids. They basically looked at it like business, as a business presentation. I had other players that basically I had to walk and talk them through it. They need to physically be placed on the field and walk through that progression. Others can watch film and get it. So I had to make sure as a coach that I covered all the aspects of anyone learning. And believe it or not, I would always ask the players, how do you best learn? Because you all don't learn at the same pace, and you all don't learn at the same rate. Some of you get this the first time I just simply say it because you can visualize it. Okay, but my job as a coach is to make sure that not only do I put it in a visual aid, in the form of film, not only do I go out put it up on the board as chalk talk, as we call it back in the old days, but with the whiteboard presentation, but then I also go out on the field and we line it up and we run through it, and I make sure enough plays are in practice so that we rep it to muscle memory. So all of those are the ways I have to look at it, and then go back and bring it back in and break the film again so that we can look at the mistakes we made, because even the cerebral players will miss something. They might have missed it in the technique that they were doing. Where the guys who have solid techniques might have, they didn't pick it up, or they picked it up well in other aspects of it because they remember seeing it on film, so they jumped it early or what have you. So there's so many ways in which you look at that. But, again, the contact, to answer the question in a nutshell, I think you need a little contact, not a lot. But I think you do need to, because if you ever go to NFL practice, they're practicing at, they're going to be moving at full speed anyway. Mm-hmm. So whether they got on shirts, just jerseys and shorts and helmets, versus the pads, I think the pads will help, because if a guy hits the ground there, he doesn't bust his collarbone or he doesn't dislocate his shoulder. So I think it's time. There are times in which you shell it off, but I think you build to that. I think you start with the helmets. You roll into the shoulder pads. You might roll into a little contact just upright, standing up, but you only have maybe 2 or 3 days of that over the course of OTAs. Not a whole lot. The closer you get to the preseason or get to training camp, I think that's when you should be implementing that stuff in, versus suiting them and booting them, once the training camp starts, and now, you get heat exhaustion and some other things that come into play without carrying that 22 pounds of equipment on your body. So, I mean, you're going to have some that favor, some that don't favor. But I think a little contact gets a little bit of aggression off. And you can kind of just burn that, early and kind of get a little of that out of the way.
Yeah, I think I'll sway just a little bit and agree there. It just goes back to one of my life mottos or life things I like to use, and that everything in moderation. So at least this early, let's have some moderate contact. We're not full blown smashing people like it's week 10 or week 16 and we're battling for a playoff spot. But maybe not enough to where it's somewhere between a balance of that and a school play. We wanted a little more than the walkthrough and the going through the motions. Just enough to like you said, to kind of get more into the feel of what it's like playing the NFL.
Right, especially when you're talking about when you're working on blocking schemes, when you're working on teaching press coverage techniques with receivers and DBs. That kind of stuff you need pads on for, at least shoulder pads and helmets, because, again, they have to look at, targets and landmarks and where you want to hand placement and all of that. And it's very difficult to do. Now, don't get me wrong, you still do some of this in the OTAs. It's just because, they're guys. You know what I'm saying? They're testosterone driven. And you just, some of it's just not going to, if they don't get it off there, they're going to get it off in the weight room, trying to bench press a Volkswagen off the chest. It's just something about being in that environment that you have to shoot your load, for lack of better terms. You got to just kind of get that off of you some kind of way. And so I think just a little bit of it tends to, it's an antidote, if you will. It's an antidote, because when they get to camp, it's wide open. Remember they haven't been in pads, so now everybody wants to just bang around and bump heads and do all of the things that you do. And I think if you can just do it in a little moderation It might even reduce a few of the injuries because now you are in some pads. It might protect you from some injuries because now you are in the pads. But again, I agree. It shouldn't be a full contact. You fighting for a job right now or else. Kind of deal. I do feel that a little contact is better than no contact at all into the season.
Exactly. At the heart of everything, we're guys and we're simple. A lot of us are. It's that caveman mentality. Occasionally, you just want to blow off some steam, and a good way to do it is putting on a helmet and some shoulder pads, and like you said, banging heads a little bit in a safe way.
Right.
We're not talking concussion, but we're talking just
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And again, I'll be interested to see when players run out there and they want to make those plays. And receiver DBs, especially in the receiver DB drills, you'll see this a lot. Guys overextending themselves for the play, and then they hit the ground. I mean, how many might have bumped their head slightly? How many might have jammed their shoulder slightly? So, I think it's a way to do it. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a way to do it. But protection of the players and their health is by far the most important. And again, like I said, for the purpose of drills in OTA. I'm not saying keep them on for the duration of practice, but when you're dealing with certain things that you want to see and certain techniques you want to cover, I feel at least helmet, shoulder pads provides a level of protection, and then you can shell them right back off after the drill is concluded.
Exactly, and I thought we did a pretty good job of covering those two, and our last two Big Four I think are going to be pretty good too. Next, we're going to go into. There's this thought going around by obviously conspiracy theorists. Even though I consider myself a theorist at times, I can come up with some pretty crazy things. A lot of people want to know, does the NFL rig games or outcomes? Do they try to fix things? Well, first of all, it's not like Roger Goodell sits around with a bunch of his friends and sings things like, no, he doesn't sit around and ask, can we fix these games so that we can get the Patriots and the Seahawks, or that we can get Peyton Manning's last game to be against Brock Osweiler, or, they don't sit around and try to do these. No, as much as it may seem that way sometimes, the NFL doesn't fix games. As a media person, I love the way things line up. I'm looking at the producer part of me and the media person in me. I want it to be entertaining. The fan part of me, I want to be entertained as well. In fact, a couple of years ago, when I stopped really worrying about if my favorite teams were to win or to lose, just to enjoy the game and just to be entertained, I've actually become a lot happier fan. And, you don't have bad Mondays following a bad Sunday loss, and you don't throw things. You don't have to replace electronics every other week. But clearly, and I know you're going to agree with me on this, the NFL is not trying to fix games. They're a governing body. They're a nonprofit organization. They're trying to make sure that the best product is on the field the safe way. So if they take a substance or they're injured or they have a violation of some kind, then you're not going to play. It's the same way it was in high school for most of us. You have to meet certain criteria to be on the field. It doesn't matter if you're the head of the football team or if you're the guy that hands out Gatorade.
I agree. You have technology now. That's why you have all the instant replay. If you remember, if there ever was a time in which that was questioned, instant replay now has fixed that.
Yep.
And so now coaches can challenge plays that they feel are questionable in the eyes of the officials. I think the officials do a great job. It's amazing how those guys slow the game down to see the plays the way that they do. And if you notice, you don't have a lot of flags. So they allow them to play because they know that you have instant replay now. They can capture that moment. So I think they do a very good job. And then they go back and they show the instant replay, and it's there, and it can be challenged at any given time. So to say that the NFL fixes games is a bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
Considering that you have technology now, you can now go back and look at every single play and slow it down and speed it up. And they're even going as far now to involve the New York staff in the NFL, to where any of the teams that are playing can literally get help from a staffed group inside of New York that will be looking at all of the games simultaneously with a group of refs watching. That's the new thing that's coming this year out of Competition and Rules Committee. So now it's not going to even just be relying on the interpretation of those officials, but another set of eyes that would now be a part of that dialogue when instant replay is coming into question.
Right.
Or is being used to determine it. So now they're going to actually be able to call it in. And remember, officials are graded on how well they officiate games. So that plays a role as well. Keeping that in mind. So even this year, it's going to even be more strenuous. Plays will be more. It's going to be very hard to overturn plays or to get those things, because now not only do you have the officials call the instant replay review, but you're going to have another set of eyes in New York that'll be watching it as it's being called, and we're part of that determining factor as well, as they got it right or if it needs to be overturned.
Absolutely, and to just bring this all full circle, the NFL doesn't rig games, because if they did, we wouldn't have had Denver versus Carolina in the Super Bowl last year. We would have had Denver might have been the person, but I mean, obviously the most controversial team in the league last year, the last couple of years, the Patriots. So it would have probably been them on the AFC side, and it would have been Green Bay or Dallas or somebody like that, a big market team that's always controversial, always keeping the NFL relevant, even on a late March afternoon or something like that. So there's no way that they're rigging games. I don't know where people are getting this. I think they're just trying to find some way to take a pot shot at the NFL. Look, the NFL is not perfect. We said earlier how they reportedly influenced the concussion study to try to get the result they wanted so they could use it to their advantage. They're not perfect. They're gonna make mistakes and such, but they're not rigging games. They are trying to put the most entertaining product out on the field. But they have rules and regulations, so they stick by those.
Yeah, and it's great that you use that analogy of the concussions, because again, if it was all about rigging, you would not hear this issue and you wouldn't have this as even a subject of discussion about the CTE.
Right.
So there's something else in play that goes to show that no one is exempt from the rules. Not even the team. Not even the organization itself. So that kind of gives you an idea of what's taking place. And and again, I think they're doing everything they can to most definitely make sure everything is being looked at and make sure things are being handled from an officiating standpoint with fairness and with critical eyes on it.
Absolutely. And since we are on the rigging games can be tied into gambling and such, or things like that. And hey, if you want to gamble, do it safely. Do it in a place where you can do it. Obviously, Georgia is not a legal place to do that if you are going to gamble. Plenty of places go around. But that leads us to our last of the big four. Vegas released the odds. I don't remember which casino it was. It was one of the bigger ones. Released the over/under win totals for the league the other day, and I'm gonna tell you what the over/under was for the Falcons, and then we're gonna kind of evaluate it. We're gonna go real quickly through the season, and we're gonna do it based off of just a couple criteria for the most part. The easiest one to me, and this is one I took from Colin Cowherd, I will happily give him the proper respect on this one because it was genius. We're going to take the quarterback for the Falcons, Matt Ryan. And based off of how good we think Matt Ryan is, we're going to say if he's better than the team they're playing against, so like if they were playing against the Browns, obviously whoever the Browns tried out there, unless they do bring back Brett Favre or something like that, obviously Matt Ryan's going to have the advantage over the Browns because he's better than their quarterback. So we'll kind of go through the schedule that way, and then we'll come back around to if we think 7 is a good number for them. Does that sound like a plan?
I'm ready. Go right ahead.
All right. Week 1, they are against Jameis Winston and the Buccaneers. Now, I'm going to say that by far the Falcons have the advantage there in quarterback play.
You know what? I don't know. I think Tampa Bay played them really tough last year, and now you face a year two Winston versus a year one Winston. I don't know. I think that Tampa Bay has done some good things in the draft as well. I don't know. Are they playing that game at home or are they playing that game in Tampa?
That game is in Atlanta.
I have to give Atlanta the slight edge. First game, new facility, getting the Super Bowl in 2019. A lot rides on it. Matt has a lot to prove. I'm going to give Atlanta the slight edge, but it won't be an easy win. It will not be an easy win.
I agree. All right. Then they are going to go to Oakland to play the Raiders. Now, I like the Raiders. I like where they're going. I think this is going to be a lot. If the Buccaneers game is going to be really close, then the Raiders game with the Falcons is going to be a nail-biter. But I'm going to actually give the edge to the Raiders on this one. Maybe
I'm giving the edge to the Raiders.
Yeah, last second Janikowski field goal.
Yeah, I'm going to give it to the Raiders. I think their quarterback Carr is doing a very good job out there. Reggie most definitely got some things in the draft and is moving his team in the direction they need to go. Atlanta would be the team that they need to prove that they're contenders and not pretenders with what they have out there. It's second game of the season. Whether they win their first one or lose their first one, it's the second game, and a lot of adrenaline is still inside their veins. So I think that in that particular case, Oakland probably beats them by a field goal. I can see that. I can see them winning by 3.
Yeah, Janikowski still got some juice there in the leg, so I feel like last second field goal. It's going to be a fun one to watch. Week 3, that is a ESPN game. It's either ESPN, so that's Monday night. That's going to be in New Orleans against the Saints. I'll let you start on this one.
I think Atlanta will beat the Saints in New Orleans. I think it's the battle of the domes, as I like to go ahead and call that game now, because they both are coincidentally Mercedes-Benz facilities. I think that New Orleans is still in the rebuilding stage right now. But when it's being a rivalry game, it's always hard to tell. Again, this is a game that Matt Ryan has to prove himself in. If you can go on the road and pull one out of Oakland and then go and pull one again out of New Orleans, it says a lot about where you are and what you're getting done. But again, I'm going to give Atlanta the edge on this one in New Orleans just because they're in the rebuilding phase right now.
Yeah, I agree. And Drew Brees, as good as he is causing that chaos and mess to be almost a borderline dumpster fire because they just have no budget right now. So, yeah, I give the Falcons a nod on that one. Now they follow up that. This is a crazy first 4 games in my opinion. They follow that up by coming back home and playing against the defending NFC champions, the Carolina Panthers.
Again, Atlanta has the first 4. I break the season up into quarters, so this is the first quarter. Yeah. Their first quarter looks like someone else's last quarter trying to get into the playoffs.
Right.
I mean, you're coming off some tough games and some very good football teams. I mean, these teams were emerging of not had winning records last year and probably barely missed playoffs. So it's a lot. Again, it's a lot to say. These first 4 games as to what Matt Ryan can get done. This is some serious talk. We're talking about Tampa to open up with. We're talking about taking off and going to Oakland and facing a strong Oakland Raiders organization with Reggie McKenzie at the helm and a young Carr at quarterback with a lot of good football players out there right there that are young, mind you. Kind of reminds me of the Kansas City team. And then you go to New Orleans in the pit of the fire of your rivalry, and then come home to defending NFC champions and Super Bowl runner-ups. That is a tall order for the first 4 weeks of football.
Right.
And that is going to set the precedent of what this team is going to look like quickly. This team, I mean, if they can come out of this 3-1, that's saying a lot. That is saying a lot.
So do you think they'll be 3-1 at that point?
You know what? I don't know. I think they'll be 2-2.
I agree.
I think at best they'll be 2-2. Because this is a battle. No one's laying down. And like I said, with this draft, everybody got some good players to add to that 1 or 2, if not 3 pieces to the puzzle. If you look at where some guys just fell in the draft that were still, outstanding collegiate athletes. Some of them get picked up into the 4th and 5th round, and some even in the 6th round. So, again, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it could easily be 3-1, it could easily be 1-3. It depends on what Atlanta team shows up. But if they're going to make a statement and put themselves in position at best case scenario to play what I've dubbed L3 in the Dome, in the Mercedes-Benz Dome in 2019, now it's time to make that statement because you have to go in. What better season to have than to prove it against the strongest, if not the second strongest schedule in the NFL? This is great for them. This is going to say a lot about what they're made of.
Absolutely, and we'll quickly go through the rest of the schedule, but the second quarter of it, as you call it, opens up with a trip to Denver. Now, I actually think that the Falcons' offense is better than the Broncos' offense, but it's going to be a great offense against a great defense and a question mark defense against a question mark offense. So I think you throw spaghetti at the wall, and whichever logo it looks like, you pick.
Well, yeah, I think it's going to depend on how well. Well, here's Denver's advantage. They're, the Mile High Stadium. I mean, you're going to be up high. You're in elevation. I mean, the old Mile High. But again, the Falcons come off of this bloodbath with Carolina. Are they playing that Carolina game at home or they're in Carolina?
No, that's a home game on week 4.
Okay, so you got to come off this beating. Win, lose, or draw. It's a fight. It's a fight to the last second, and then you got to jump on a plane in about 3-4 days, and then head out to Denver in high elevation where the air is fitter than spaghetti, and now go and fight against and prove that you're one of the top 5 teams in the league against the defending Super Bowl champion.
Yeah, that's your reward. After you play the runner-up to the Super Bowl at home, you get to go on the road and face the Super Bowl champion the next week. I mean, if that's not a reward, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I've faced schedules like that in the past, and I'm telling you, it builds character quick because you don't have time to mess around, and not that these guys do, but, I mean, these are statement games. These are not games that they're getting 1 a quarter, as I would call, or 2 a quarter. No, you're getting these games. These are the teams you're playing in the first 5 to 6 weeks of the season.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, these are the teams that you're facing.
And we got about 5 minutes left in the show, so we're going to try to get through this real quick. Win or loss against the Broncos?
Lose.
I gave him the nod. I gave him the nod. I feel like it's Matt Ryan can score more points than the Broncos defense can. So I feel like that's the test there.
I just don't think they're going to have. I just don't think they're going to have all their personnel in place for that Denver game. I think there's going to be some people beat up and hurt and maybe not playing or starting even.
Exactly. And so next week, after they leave Denver, they get to go to Seattle and play the Seahawks. I have got a loss for the Falcons.
Yes.
Seahawks are still good.
Yeah, they're still good, and they're gonna be beat up from the Denver game.
Yep, absolutely. Then they get to come home and play the San Diego Chargers. Now I think they can beat the Chargers. The Chargers are having some issues.
Yes, I think that would be the game that gives them confidence back.
And then to round out the second quarter of the season, the day before Halloween, they're going to play against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Now, of course, that's in Atlanta.
But Aaron can beat you anywhere. It doesn't mean he beats you in a parking lot.
That's true.
I mean,
apparently he can beat you on Twitter too, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if Atlanta's going to be healthy enough to go against the Packers at that point in time. I think their confidence will be up, but will they have all the healthy players? I mean, they're pretty much torched in the first six weeks of the season with the games that they have to play.
Absolutely. At the halfway point, I got the Falcons at 4-4. You got them at 3-5. I think we're both right. Third quarter of the season, they're going to go to the Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers are going to be mad that they lost first of the year, and they're going to win this one at home.
Yeah, I'm with you with that. I think the Bucs are gonna anchor down again. They're coming off that Green Bay game. which will be a very hard on them as well. So I expect to see the Bucs to come in and try to just finish whatever other teams have been picking at the bones.
Absolutely. And then after traveling to Tampa, they are going to travel to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. The Eagles have got some stuff to clean up, and I don't have a lot of confidence in what they're going to do this year. So I got Atlanta picking up the victory in Philadelphia.
I agree with you there. I think they'll beat them.
Third game of that section of the schedule of the third quarter there is the Arizona Cardinals are going to come to Atlanta. Now, nothing personal to the Falcons, but even if they play out of their mind, I don't think they're beating the Cardinals.
No, I believe the Cardinals will beat them.
And then they finish up staying at home the next week against the Kansas City Chiefs, which, as coin flippy as that game, you think the Chiefs will win?
Yeah, I think Arizona's going to take the win out of themselves. I mean, look at who they're playing before they play those teams.
That's true.
You know, and I think Kansas City. Remember, they're right now, for the lack of better terms, they're a poor man version of Arizona. So they have a great run game. They look a lot like Carolina as well. So I don't know if the Falcons have enough in them to beat the Chiefs right now. I don't see it.
Yeah, you swayed me on that one. I'll give Kansas City the nod. Now, going into the last quadrant, this by far is the best quarter of their entire season. They are going to go to the now LA Rams, where I think they're going to beat the Rams.
Yeah, they'll beat the Rams.
Then they come back home to face my possible cousins, the Yorks and the 49ers. I believe they will torch the 49ers.
They'll beat the 49ers. Yeah, they'll beat the 49ers.
Then they go to Carolina to finish up that series. More than likely, I would say they're going to end up 500 against their division anyway, so I think the Panthers are going to take that one.
Yes.
And then they finish up by a home game right here in the Dome. It'll be the last regular season game, possibly the last football game played in the Dome besides college, against the New Orleans Saints. And I got the Saints losing that one. I still think they're in too much chaos.
Yeah. I think they have the Saints number this year, but the only thing about rivalries, it tends to make your underachievers overachieve. So it's just going to be interesting. I give the Falcons both of the games against New Orleans, but they won't be by big margins or big victories.
Right.
There'll still be fights. There'll be fights. They'll be down to the wire type wins, and that takes a lot out your players.
Absolutely. And with about a minute and a half to go, the over/under is set at 7. If you were a betting man, Coach, would you take the over, the under, or the push on the Falcons on winning 7 games?
Ooh, I would have to probably take the push on this. Because, again, injuries with other teams play a big factor as well, so I have to take it on a push.
I take the over. I think they're going to win 8 or 9 games, and it's funny that we did that because I look back. I've got them finishing 8-8. You got them finishing 7-9, so the push makes sense to me with the over. Obviously, Reggie probably has the over as well. We'll get that from him later. But, Coach, it's been good having you back on. Hopefully, in the next couple of weeks, we'll get us all 3 back on. But it's always fun talking football with you, either on or off this. And appreciate you being back on the show.
Oh, not a problem. Enjoyed the time.
And that's going to do it for us right here on FalconZone for Blog Talk Radio, Impact Media, and for the Coach. I'm Jeremy the Impact York. We'll see you guys in 3 weeks for the next FalconZone. Go Falcons!